Good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the Silks Okanagan Nation and their peoples, in whose traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory UBC Okanagan is situated. There's never been a time more important for us to realize the relationship we have and the obligations that those of us who are settlers have to the relationship on this land. I'd also like to acknowledge that you are joining us today from many places near and far, and to acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of all of those lands, and that we are in community with each other and need to work together. My name is Leslie Cormack, and I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor and Principal of UBC's Okanagan campus. I want to take a very quick opportunity to welcome you to this faculty town hall, which will highlight some of the innovative and transformative ways our colleagues have adapted to the remote learning environment, as well as share some of our students' perspectives and concerns regarding a return to in-person learning. I know that there's still lots of planning to be done, but I would really like to thank the dedicated faculty and staff planning our return to campus for this incredible work, for their incredible work to date. The transition back to campus presents a very complex challenge with many moving parts. It was easier to go remote than it now is to think about what it will look like in September. I have every confidence in the direction of our resumption planning and coordination committee to guide this transition and to ensure that our needs are met safely and with consideration for all members of our campus community. I now will pass it over to Brad Weatherick, the Associate Provost, Academic Programs, Teaching and Learning, who will moderate today's town hall.
Hi, thank you, Leslie. Tansi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Spring Faculty Town Hall. Brad Weatherick, Nisikson, as Leslie mentioned, my name is Brad Weatherick, and I'm the Associate Provost, Academic Programs, Teaching and Learning at UBC Okanagan. I'll be moderating today's program, which includes a very full lineup of speakers. I just wanted to begin with a really quick comment, though. Thank you. That this has been a unique year for the UBCO community and for higher education around the world. And each of you who have contributed to making this past year as successful as it could be through long hours and challenging and at times challenging teaching and working environments, all while living through a global pandemic. The uncertainty, anxiety, and even trauma that many of us have dealt with throughout the pandemic, added to the stress of everything else that we've undertaken, it is important that we recognize the impact that this year has had on each and every member of our community. So as we look to the fall semester for our community, we are glad that you're able to join us today for an exploration of what we would like the teaching and learning environment to be like on our campus. So here's a quick overview of what you can expect today. First, Michael Burgess, our Associate Provost Strategy and Resumption Planning and Coordinating Committee Co-Chair, will share some overarching remarks regarding the return to campus this fall and where you can find additional resources and information. Then we'll hear from Dale Mullings, UBC Okanagan's Associate Vice President Students, who will share information about student concerns and preferences regarding a return to campus this fall from the September Restart Survey. After that, we have 4 faculty members who will each share a presentation on their teaching experience and learnings over the past year, including new practices that positively impacted student learning. And our final segment is a presentation about supports available for faculty through IT services and the Center for Teaching and Learning. Following our presentation, we will have about 30 minutes for Q&A. We'll use the Zoom Q&A feature. You can ask a question at any time by clicking on the Q&A icon in the bottom of your Zoom window. You can also engage by liking others' questions that you find most interesting to upvote them on the question list. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the session. Also, a reminder that this session is being recorded and a video of this webinar will be available on our website in the coming weeks. So first, I wanted to turn it over to Michael Burgess, Associate Provost Strategy. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks very much, Brad. I guess my role here is to address the elephant in the room and the sense in which the pandemic is the elephant. And what we really want to do is be able to figure out how we set it aside to be able to address learning experiences going forward. As a faculty member, I reflect on my experience teaching a grad seminar for the School for Population and Public Health on pandemic planning. where I had an ER physician and pandemic specialist who came into the class and used the imaginary of a zombie incursion to get students to consider the balance between individual focus of traditional healthcare and focus on restricting air while protecting the population. I mean, the pandemic has really been quite a challenge for us, balancing individual and collective responsibilities and rights. But the most important message that we found in pandemic planning pre-COVID was that it wasn't done very well. And so I think there's been such a time of great growth and learning, and this message is pretty obvious now. I work as co-chair with Shelley Kayfish for the Resumption Planning and Coordination Committee, which has many faculty representatives as well. Shelley and I both sit on the Vancouver campus's COVID-19 Leadership Committee and report to the Okanagan Senior Executive. All of these groups meet weekly and have people charged with strong coordination and communication. All of them will continue to meet over the summer, and we meet as needed with Public Health Office and regional health authorities. And in addition to that, Phil Barker has been an active member of the Provincial Post-Secondary Advisory for Return to Campus Planning. So I just want to give you a sense of the deep and regular and serious involvement that we have as a campus on planning going forward. And our approach on the Okanagan campus has been to mobilize as much information as we can online. And I think this is going to appear on the chat now, but they're the Q&A. The place to start for FAQs and resource documents is the ok.ubc.ca/COVID-19/contact. And those links should be a good place to start. Anytime we've identified through any of these groups trends of questions, we try to make sure we get responses up there, and we try to categorize them for relevant populations and also link to relevant documents, such as the Provincial Health Office documents. Generally this summer, we're working towards a less burdensome safety plans with a shift to more general plans instead of building and unit specific ones. And those details will be coming out online. That shift will take place based on the Public Health Office moving to next phases of pandemic management. And though we have strong predictions and we think the CDC models are good, we all know how unpredictable this pandemic and human behavior has been. Program and department heads are your best resources for the most specific questions. HR and the Faculty Association will of course support you on those kinds of issues as well. But now, most importantly, we want to focus on how we transition back to the kind of campus activities and learning experiences that we all want, with appropriate lessons from the past very difficult year and a half.
Thank you, Mike. Our next speaker is Dale Mullins, Associate Vice President Students, who's going to speak a little bit more about the student perspective. Welcome, Dale.
Thanks so much, Brad. So this spring, we conducted a survey, and over 1,800 students from the Okanagan provided a response about their concerns and about returning to campus and how we can improve their student experience. Undergraduate, graduate students, domestic and international students all provided responses that were very helpful. And so my hope today is to share 4 themes that have emerged from that survey and how as a campus we're responding to some of these student concerns. I'll be going into greater depth at the student town hall on Monday, providing feedback to students on how we'll be supporting them. But first, one of the primary themes that emerged was around safety on campus. Students wanted to be clear that there would be availability of cleaning and sanitizing supplies for use on campus, as well as clear protocols for public spaces, but also within the classroom. With regards to hybrid learning experience, they wanted to ensure that there's quiet study space on campus to participate in online classes. Access to technology, and this was referenced primarily by international students that may not have been able to take advantage of the technology bursary in the past. And reliable Wi-Fi on campus or near campus, and timely communication about important information for courses, such as in the student information system, being very clear what courses will be offered in person, online, or in a hybrid format. With regards to our response in this area, with safety on campus, there will be daily cleaning and sanitizing and safety protocols made available to students. That'll be clear for both in-class and out-of-class experiences. Thanks to the BC government, we are aware and know that all students, domestic or international, will have access to vaccine. And we're starting a COVID ambassador program to assist students in terms of responding to questions that they have across the campus, being able to provide education, and being able to support students by being a positive reinforcement for those that are following protocols appropriately. With regards to hybrid learning experience, we'll be prioritizing informal learning space. And at this time, we're looking to expand some of our informal learning spaces in outdoors, as well as we've created a list where students will be able to go online, visually see spaces for informal learning, identify if those spaces are best for quiet study or for class use. As well, we've made an investment of $250,000 of technology bursary again, and this will support not only our international students that may not have had access to that bursary last year or may not have taken advantage of it, but also all new students that are coming in that may benefit from this. Our campus IT team is making enhancements to our IT infrastructure, as well as ensuring that spaces where informal learning or some of our dining areas are well equipped with strong Wi-Fi infrastructure. And as early as next Monday, we anticipate the course schedule being published, which will be at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance for students to be able to look at and filter what courses are available online, in person, or hybrid, and synchronous or asynchronous. So that will address that need for students that was brought to our attention. The final considerations that were brought forward, the living situation for many of our students, primarily our international students entering the country, where they'll likely be facing that they'll have to be in a quarantine scenario or in self-isolation, is something that came to our attention, as well as the challenge of the Kelowna housing market and the rental market locally. That not only are students that are returning to campus, but those students that have never had an opportunity to live in Kelowna, that won't be living in housing, to find housing in this area is certainly something that was raised as a challenge. And when it comes to service needs and delivery, we recognize we have a double cohort essentially of students that have never been on campus, and to be able to navigate the on-campus student experience. Concerns were raised amongst all students if they're going to be in person or online, how they're going to continue to build community, as well as supports for them and their mental health, either if they're on campus or potentially abroad. In terms of response, next slide, please. In terms of response, there will be a new student experience desk in the UNC, which will be available to all students as a first stop to help them navigate the resources that are available to them either on campus or online. And this will be a peer facilitated student experience desk. We'll continue with our expanded counseling. We've added additional counselors in our counseling unit, as well as our student assistance program, which is a 24/7 counseling support line that offers counseling support in over 160 languages. So regardless of where our students are in the world, this fall, they'll continue to receive mental health support. And we have $2.8 million invested in need-based student funding. And some of the opportunity here is we have a new on and off campus housing bursary. We have a self-isolation bursary to support international students. And we'll continue with that technology bursary that I noted. With regards to service needs and delivery, we have an enhanced student support program, which will support students through a peer model for online or in-person support. Expanded orientation to include a second-year orientation, and all of our orientations will be delivered both online or in person and in groups of no more than 50 students. And then most services will be offered in person and online Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Thank you, Dale. We will now move into our faculty presentations. I'm pleased to welcome our first speaker, Raymond Lawrence, who's a professor in the Irving K. Barber Faculty of Science. Over to you, Raymond.
Thank you, Brad. I just want to start with words of affirmation. I think it's really important. We all did it. We managed to adapt to a major significant change to how we teach. Going from in-person to online is a fundamental change. And as a community, we succeeded in doing that. So we should be very thankful, and looking back appreciative of all the hard work that went through everybody who did it, staff, faculty, and the students who adapted with us. There's some good things that happened, even though it seems hard to say, but there were some good things that happened when we were forced to make this change. We recognized increased student flexibility, accommodation, and understanding, adapted to things like time zones, health issues, and a variety of other things that we might not have been as responsive before when we were offering these courses in person. The other thing that was nice to see is of a whole bunch of new innovative content and approaches in course redesign. When you are faced with a brand new challenge, you have a choice to innovate and do something different. And as a community, we responded to that challenge, and that's really heartening to see. That being said, we all know we faced a whole bunch of challenges throughout these last months, adapting to this new teaching style, the most important of which is increased faculty workload. Whenever I talk to faculty, the most common issue, complaint that comes up is it's just taking more time for preparation, more time for larger class sizes, student communication and help. We all want to do the best job we can, but there is a lot of new time that's spent on some of these activities that we were doing. And the other thing that's concerning, this burden of new time is also being faced more by the people who are teaching more. Our sessionals, our lecturers, our teaching focus faculty who may not always have the voice to express to administration what is going on. I think it's really important from the administration's perspective to listen and to respond to these people especially, because this has to be a sustainable method of teaching going forward. The other major thing I've heard in the community is evaluation tools, techniques in dealing with academic dishonesty. If you taught any course in the last 16 months, you realize that this is the hardest task to deal with. Academic dishonesty is increasing. Going online has just made it worse. And how we adapt to it and change our evaluation styles is really important. I use an example, Proctorio, which has caused a huge debate in our community. Out of personal experience, I used Proctorio successfully in my course. Student reviews are excellent. There was no issues with it. On the other side, I have seen students in tears where the technology or the deployment has failed them and they are distressed, distraught with how they have done in a course or dropped or failed a course. Evaluation is really important. It's our fundamental challenge. While we're teaching at UBC, and getting it right is important. And the other thing we have to acknowledge is some students actually did better in the online community. Some people respond better with electronic chat rather than putting their hands up during a large class. But we still have a lot of people who did not like this experience. And we have this challenge of losing community and connection. We are not an online educational institution, or at least we currently are not. So what differentiates UBC is our community and our connection. And we've got to make sure we continue to do that. Next slide, please. So building this community is critical. If you were teaching, however you did it, chat, discussions, any way to continue to have that community, interacting with students during the start of your Zoom call was really important. That made them feel that they are part of the UBC and that you care about them. Lessons learned, evaluation online is hard. It's not getting any easier. It is different than in person. Things that failed is trying to take an in-person exam and just move it directly online. You really have to think differently. Going forward, redesigning courses and evaluation for the best features online and preserving that student flexibility is important, whether that's the videos, the flexible deadlines, virtual office hours, and labs. Students have now got a taste of something different than in person. So I don't think we're going to go back to exactly the same, because we could do better by combining what works in person and that community aspect, what works well online. We developed a lot of good content as a community. I would argue that we should be sharing our content more. This becomes a little bit more scalable for workloads if we share the videos that you make. Courses become a little bit more standardized. Sometimes we're just independent contractors more than a community of scholars and teachers. And we should be investing time in improving these evaluations. They're not going to go away. We should be looking at automation as we get time. We should be modifying how we are changing our courses, because our goal should be to keep that contact time with students. And if we're losing that, that's what we're losing that's special about at UBC. So for my own courses, I've removed all scheduled labs. It makes it easier for students going forward, and it actually makes it easier to do the evaluation. And I'm going to continue with the virtual office hours. I don't know about the other people, but I got a lot more people at my virtual office hours than I did in my real office hours. So in summary, whether it's in person or online, effective teaching really hasn't changed. We have to care for the students. We have to clearly communicate. We have to be passionate. And I know going back to the classroom or whatever that looks like, I'm hopeful and enthusiastic in what we can do as a community in UBC. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Raymond. Our next faculty presenter is Anita Chowdhury, Assistant Professor in the Faculty of Creative and Critical Studies. Over to you, Anita.
Thank you, Brad. So I'm going to continue with the different ideas that were presented and indicating how it worked out in my classroom space and the commonalities that can be shared. So therefore, with successes, I begin with flexibility. The flexibility of having a learning schedule that goes above and beyond when the course is scheduled to take place. So the Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule can, or I was able to look at it from the perspective of how to create more time and space for the students to make use of the material that is being made available to them and how they respond to that material and how much time can be afforded to that learning activity. So flexibility for me worked out recognizing the different time zones that the students were located in. And therefore, for instance, releasing modules, the course material on Monday or even prior to that, the previous week, Friday, and then making things due at the end of the week so that it set a rhythm to the course. That was important. I noticed students appreciated the aspect of knowing when something new would be released, discussed, and then when the material will be received back, whether it's on Canvas or group projects that need to be discussed, etc. And that setting up that timeline definitely helped make the course more flexible. The other aspect was, again, tied to flexibility, but also looking at some of the strategies that I hadn't tried as much in a face-to-face setting. And the online courses that I taught allowed me the space to think, to revisit some of the concepts that we were learning and applying in the writing classroom. So being an instructor of writing studies, it's critical for me to focus on the transfer of some of the key concepts. And when we think about transfer, I'm looking at different disciplines, the genre expectations and all of that. And therefore, it was critical for me to recognize that some of those critical concepts were getting registered or being used effectively in their learning, in their writing. So remediation, therefore, turned out to be an important strategy of being able to revision the same idea, the same project, but in different genres. So for instance, moving a text from purely writing it into a visual format was quite interesting for students with different abilities, different interests, different objectives, different ways and styles of learning as well. So that particular pedagogical strategy stood out for me very, very well. The third one I'd like to mention is the resources that were available via the library that are still available, which is totally above and beyond what we typically have access to in terms of the readings, the material, the movies that one can watch and access now. Those absolutely contributed in a big way to how teaching and learning happened in the classroom. So access to material changed and changed for the better. And that was definitely an aspect I would view as a success. The next part to do with challenges, communication. So the quietude of asynchronous learning, of online learning, the virtual discussion, posting things on Canvas, and then the waiting period to see what the peers might say, comment on the reactions that may come one's way, very quiet, something that needed to be addressed. That's something I felt as an instructor, monitoring Canvas shells, encouraging people to talk and discuss, but then the communication I recognized was definitely needing some amount of strategizing to encourage people to unmute, speak, even to start their videos at certain points in time, and begin to realize that they are part of a community, even if they are situated in this online space. In-class activities was another challenge, and by that I mean the number of activities one could complete within a class period. So in a typical face-to-face class, if I could go through 2 or 3 activities, shorter ones, related in some way, I recognize that in online sessions or synchronous sessions, it was difficult for me to really transition from one to the next, and a third one was quite impossible. And therefore, looking forward with the next slide, I'd like to note that flexible learning and that aspect definitely needed to be established from the beginning of the term. So online sessions really worked out well when all of us knew exactly when something was due. So releasing that information, that class module for the week well ahead of time, helped us organize the different expectations, the reading material, etc. Remediation, I mentioned in the previous slide, revisiting key concepts and transferring that knowledge in different genres stood out as an important way to strategize and learn. Communication, so thinking about from what I mentioned with the previous slide, guiding the communication strategies was critical. It was a challenge, and therefore moving forward with the classes I teach this term, I am encouraging shorter time periods to come and meet online. So instead of wondering what needs to be done, I encourage students to come meet me for 10 minutes, if not for 20 even, and discuss it and discuss project ideas and drafts and such, so that the meeting space allows for a little bit of that community development and understanding of where one is coming from and the expectations of an assignment, etc. So that is, I'm happy to report, working out quite well. It keeps the students aware that if we are meeting synchronously on a certain day and then they are asynchronously assigned work, does not mean that, yes, there is flexibility, but that work needs to be completed. Encouraging students to engage beyond the classroom, beyond Canvas, is another way, another strategy that, well, students have themselves figured this out, connecting with each other over whether it's WhatsApp or WeChat or any other forum that they use, that they decide to use. And my interest this term and moving forward is only slightly direct what items can be taken up for discussion in those other more informal spaces where they like to interact without my presence or the TA's presence. And therefore, guiding the alternate forums with topic ideas is something I recognize may be valuable for them to consider, and listing them out for them every week, or just as a listing as part of the course schedule itself might be useful. Peer reviews, as a writing instructor, we do encourage a lot of peer reviews, readings of papers, etc., discussion. And instead of maintaining the Canvas forums. Things, of course, get posted on the forums, but then the discussions to happen not just asynchronously, but bringing them as part of classroom spaces. Again, smaller amounts of time assigned to that kind of peer review process is critical to improve the communication, so students begin to feel comfortable about what's happening around in this online, very virtual space, which can be sometimes alienating and very tiring for those who are in opposite time zones, for instance. Efficiency with time, that's my final a strategy that I'm looking forward to experiment with and utilize. Instead of multiple activities in an online forum, I intend to have one activity that has multiple parts to it, that allows one to transition better. There are fewer number of screen changes that they need to figure out, the screen shares that they need to do. And if we are unable to complete an activity, then it does become a smoother transition for the students as well as for me. So that aspect of how to make sure the synchronous sessions come together and there is discussion on the key concepts, and that the activities are helping them move and look forward into what's coming next, are critical to the learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. I'd now like to welcome Jackie Dennison, Associate Professor in the Faculty of Health and Social Development. Over to you, Jackie.
Thanks, Brad, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to share perspectives at a program level, and you'll hear several similarities from what the other panelists have said. So a good outcome for the School of Nursing was an opportunity to review courses, course delivery, and as we move forward, sort of reconsider how teachers, faculty, and teaching staff connect with students outside of class time. Teachers put in a significant amount of time developing new learning activities, and also many reconsidered how they evaluated students, the methods they used. So students and instructors really did rise to the challenge, and overall students did very well. We had no change in terms of attrition from previous years in any year of the program. And it was really impressive to see how students found creative ways to come together and connect virtually, which is so important. And teachers were very receptive to virtual meetings with students. And I think probably made several one-on-one meetings and also some group meetings as well. I think a lot of instructors would say that they gained more skills and experience in regards to innovative teaching methods, and also just a general increase in perhaps comfort with classroom technologies. So in the School of Nursing, we chose to create a Canvas shell template for nursing, as well as a nursing course syllabus template. Some faculty came together with people from the Center of Teaching and Learning to create the Canvas shell template, and then a group of faculty came together to develop the nursing course template. And the feedback from students and instructors was very positive. So from the students' feedback, they really appreciated the consistency, so the sort of same look and feel, but of course the content within was unique to the course. So, and I would say the vast majority of our instructors used both the Canvas shell template and the course syllabus template. So challenges, there were a few bumps along the way. Just for some context, because the BSN program in the School of Nursing is an accredited professional practice program and in alignment with a provincial health officer's order to not delay the graduation of nursing students, the nursing lab courses and nursing clinical practice courses were still delivered in person with, of course, safety measures put in place. However, all of the lectures and seminar courses and anything that could be online was moved to online. So this resulted in a real challenge of time for us, for students. So when you have courses that require students to be in person, when you miss 2 weeks, it's very hard to make up that time in a 12-week term. So for example, we had some students that did test positive for COVID-19, but more frequently it was that they were in close contact with someone that tested positive, and therefore they had to stay home and isolate for 14 days. So we were able to address the challenge, which included support from our leadership to make the space for that extra time. But again, it did require creativity and resources. And certainly isolation was a challenge. And it was a challenge for both students and for teachers. So some students found the isolation quite challenging, but I think also teachers found the isolation to be taxing. So several of us typically are on campus regularly, and it was hard to not have those hallway conversations or pop over to someone's office to run something by them. And I think all of us can say we would gladly take a break from email. And of course, we did also have some challenges with technology. So the technology fails, I think, are high stress, and certainly connectivity issues when there were things like high stakes exams and students were having trouble connecting certainly led to some challenges along the way. Next slide. So lessons learned. I think we all learned that a flexible delivery of instruction is possible and can be very effective. However, it takes a lot of teacher time and institutional resources. So I know that the teachers I connected with, and I connected with most teachers regularly, spent an extensive amount of time developing quality learning activities and fair evaluative measures. And it also requires a lot of institutional resources. And from my perspective, the university provided a lot of support and resources as we moved to online teaching. But I know, similar to what other panelists have mentioned, the teachers put in a lot of time, not just over the summer, but throughout the academic year to create quality courses. Certainly for the School of Nursing, I would say one size does not fit all. Some courses actually seem to have some advantages to being online. Others did not work so well. And I think if you asked perhaps the year one teachers and students, for example, their preference would likely be to lean towards in-person instruction and for the purposes of really gaining community and building those peer connections. However, if you asked a year four student or teacher, they may have a different answer. And lastly, I think a compassionate approach with clear expectations and high academic integrity is effective for both students and instructors. So sometimes I think when people hear compassion, they think it means going soft. But if you're consistent and you keep your expectations clear, then making space for errors or missteps with students seem to result in students also having compassion for the instructors. And that's my final bit.
Thank you, Jackie. Our final presenter is Mehran Shirazi, a lecturer in the School of Engineering. Over to Mehran.
Hello, happy Friday. I hope all of you are doing great. In the beginning of 2020, the semester started in January 2020, I was assigned to teach 4 courses. I was teaching all those 4 courses for the first time, so I had nothing ready. The schedule of my classes was like this: 4 back-to-back classes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So for example, every Tuesday I had to prepare 4 lectures, and every Wednesday I had to switch between 4 different topics back-to-back. I kept telling myself, this is the worst that can happen. Nothing can be worse than this. If I survive this semester, the rest will be easier. Then in week 9, on March 13th, it was a Friday, after my last class, I was waiting for the students to leave. One of the students came towards me, showed me his Instagram. It was a message implying that this might be the last day of in-person classes. At that moment, I didn't know what the consequences are, but a few days later, I realized what I thought it was the worst thing ever wasn't the worst thing. Something worse is happening. It's now 448 days since that March 13th, 2020. I'm teaching my 13th online course without any break, back-to-back courses. I really liked when Ramon said we did it, but in order to be inclusive, I want to say I know some of you are still doing it. It's not finished. I'm on the same boat too. But when I look back at all of what has happened in the last more than 1 year, I can see I have learned many new things, new things that I wouldn't have learned if all these things did not happen. I obviously don't like the pandemic, but I really like the experiences I got to have during the last year. If I want to categorize the modifications I had in my courses, there would be 4 groups: assessment, engagement, accessibility, compassion, flexibility, and the materials we developed. I'm going to briefly mention a couple of points in each category that I really like, the modifications that I did, and I like them. First is open book exams. Before the pandemic, all my exams were closed book. Then, because of obvious reasons, I had to have open book exams during the pandemic, and I really liked them. And I started to think our students, after they graduate in real life, the problems they need to solve are like open book exam, not closed book exam. So I started to change my teaching to prepare them for open book exam, which is way more similar to real life problems. The other one was low stakes exam. I learned it in the beginning of the pandemic from CTL and CTLT workshop. I want to use this opportunity to thank CTL. The workshops were amazing. The support was amazing. Thank you, everyone in CTL. I started using Zoom chat, the discussion boards in Canvas, and breakout rooms. The discussion and breakout rooms worked in some courses, not in the other. So it depended on the course. I absolutely loved the online office hours. It was convenient for the students. It was convenient for the course instructors. I really loved it. Regarding accessibility and compassion, well, all of us were more flexible in the last year, but there was something I started to notice. I don't know how many students and instructors with disability we have, but I realized that maybe when we designed our courses previously, we ignored them. Our course design was ableist. We didn't think about the problems that students with disability or instructors with disability might have. So I think it's good that we keep the practices we had during the pandemic later too. The normal is ableist. So during the pandemic, all of us felt kind of disabled, right? We couldn't come to campus. We couldn't do many things we could do usually. It's good to have them in mind now on too. We also started giving extensions. I learned that it doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt anyone if a student submit their assignment 1 or 2 days late. My goal is to help them learn the topic. Well, it's okay, let them submit it a little bit late. The recorded lectures were amazing. I remember the days that I was a student, and sometime during the lecture, I started daydreaming. And being a shy student, I never went to the professor's office to ask questions about the topic I had missed. Students can easily watch the recorded lectures, learn what they had missed. If they are sick, they can skip class, watch the recording later. It's very useful. I really liked it. We developed a lot of material. In number 1 in my bucket list before the pandemic was to learn how to use Camtasia. Now I'm expert in using Camtasia. We made a lot of videos that we can use later, a lot of asynchronous resources. And as I said, I thought I have been teaching 13 online courses. So I tried many different methods. One of them was flipped classroom. Before the pandemic, again, I liked to use flipped classroom method, but I was never brave enough. I didn't have the courage to do it. During the pandemic, it gave me the opportunity to do it. And I absolutely love the result of those 2 classes I used flipped classroom in. I used the asynchronous material. So I said, okay, I have this asynchronous material, the videos, let's flip the classroom. I'm supposed to talk about the challenges we had in the last year too, but I'm going to focus on one challenge. Designing several low-stake exams is more workload. Moderating the discussions, breakout rooms, chats is more workload. Being more flexible is more workload. Being more accessible is more workload for the course instructor. Creating videos, flipping the classroom is more workload. Maybe we can talk more about this in the Q&A part, but there's just one thing I want to mention. When I design my weekly modules for students, for every week, I carefully count the time, the exact hour that the students need to do in that week to achieve the goals. When I assign tasks to my TAs, the same thing. I carefully calculate how much time they need to spend, how many hours they need to spend for that task. A few days ago, I was thinking, who counts our hours? Who takes care of our hours? For me, since the beginning of 2020, I have worked every day, every Saturday, every Sunday, Christmas Day, New Year Day, and I'm not exaggerating. I had to work to be able to teach these courses. So I think it's good that we consider the workload of faculty too. In the last year, all of us were compassionate towards the student. Sometimes I think, so who is compassionate towards us? The next question I'd like to answer is, which one of these I will keep for the next year or in the future? I will definitely keep up open book exam. I love it. I will teach the low stakes exam. I will keep it because it helps the students follow the course. Don't cram for the final exam. Discussion and breakout room, maybe not, but I like to have some kind of classroom response systems. Absolutely love online office hours. I will have them in the future. Extensions are good. Like them to be more flexible. I will record the lectures if we have the technical ability to do that. So I'm not aware of that. Hopefully soon we'll realize. If we have the ability, I will definitely want to record the lectures. One concern is, will the students keep coming to class? I had a short talk with Brad last week. He mentioned a very good point that if our class has value, students will come to class. And I agree with him. So it's a challenge for us to design our classes so that it has value for students to come to class. We have lots of videos we can use. We have, I think still I will try flipped classroom. If I have enough time to do that, because it's extra work in the future. To summarize about the lessons I learned for the future, we had to do a lot of changes in our courses because we had to. It was necessary. We didn't choose to do it. But during that, we learned a lot about teaching. So maybe it's good that in the future, we take risks in teaching. Maybe we don't have to, but let's try new things. It might fail. It might be a flop, but it might be successful too. And we might learn a lot of things by taking risks. Another lesson I learned is that every course, every group of students, every topic, every semester is different. There is no cookie cutter solution for all of them. We just need to be adaptable. The final thing I want to say is that maybe it's a good time that we rethink about our education, about our teaching. Let's not miss this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miran. Now I want to turn things over to Tanya Fornaris, who has served as the interim academic lead for the Center for Teaching and Learning over the past year, and is an associate professor of teaching in the School of Health and Exercise Sciences. Tanya will share information about faculty supports available through the CTL and through learning and IT services as we transition to the campus this fall. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, Brad, for that introduction. So over the next few minutes, I want to bring together some of the themes we've been hearing from faculty over the past year, and again by our wonderful faculty panelists today. So this first theme is really about the importance of developing a sense of community and belonging. The online environment has both facilitated and inhibited this in different ways. And moving forward, I think what I would like to see on our campus is to work together to optimize these multiple ways of enhancing community and belonging with students as well as with faculty. This may be through having online office hours. It may be through fostering discussions that move beyond the classroom walls, again, with faculty, peer-to-peer, as well as with students. Allowing students to engage or communicate with us and with each other in more inclusive ways, and or augmenting accessibility via recorded materials. There was so much work and so much time that went into developing really high quality materials for our courses. And I think we should explore how to best utilize them and perhaps foster maybe more active learning or engaged environment when we're in the classroom face-to-face. And I know a lot of faculty are really working on or thinking about how they can do this. The second theme may not be a surprise, less is more. Some of this we learned the hard way. I think we all had great intentions with the integration of low stakes activities for our students, but by now most of us, I think, have realized that the low stakes activity is the good thing, but maybe less is more. Otherwise, it becomes just overwhelming for the students, for our TAs, and for faculty, instructors, as they all take time and energy to either develop or mark or complete. And this also speaks to what Anita expressed, that perhaps one activity with multiple parts can be more effective than trying to do multiple activities within one session. The same has been kind of shared around multiple platforms. So students throughout the year have talked about how many different platforms and programs they've had to use to engage with their course materials. And I know there's a lot of conversations and work ongoing to try and improve that, right? How can we streamline those platforms? How can we integrate things into Canvas so that we can have more of a seamless experience for our students, while also offering variety and kind of, optimal ways to either deliver content or engage with students. And from the start of the pivot, I'd like to kind of talk about one of our guiding principles, which was to use our learning outcomes or objectives to guide decisions about where we invest our time and effort. As Mayra just talked about and others have talked about, it does take a lot of work and effort to kind of shift and to continue to even think about, how does post-secondary education, or what does it look like in the future? In retrospect, I think this principle helped further our thinking about course design and aligning assessments with our learning outcomes. And I hope that this is just the start of the work. And I guess the other point I'd like to state is that, let's take one step or slow steps. If we try to change everything all at once, again, that workload becomes really challenging and unmanageable. But we can continue to take one step at a time to offer kind of higher quality learning within our institution. There have been and continue to be lots of conversations about assessment, as Raymond highlighted. There have been significant challenges, but also significant insights related to assessment over the past 14 months. And so the theme that came to me was that it's clear that we need to further assess how we assess. There's no one solution, as Maren said, no cookie cutter approach. I just hope that conversations about how to better design assessments for learning rather than achievement continue. It is through these discussions that we can hopefully find better, albeit multiple ideas that enable to us advance in this area. Finally, kind of closing with the importance of flexibility and compassion, which all of our 4 panelists, as well as many, many other faculty, have highlighted throughout the past year. And this is so important. What I take from the shared experiences today, as well as others throughout the year, is that we need to have a flexible and compassionate approach to help students learn and succeed. However, being flexible and compassionate does not mean we stop challenging students. Support and challenge are not mutually exclusive. We have to continue to challenge students to push themselves. And supporting students with compassion and flexibility does not mean making it easier for them. I am sure we can all certainly agree that life after our undergraduate degree does not get easier. And so we have to challenge them, but challenging them while supporting students is what allows them to reach their full potential academically. Next slide, please. I would also like to take a few moments just to discuss the various resources we have and will continue to have in place to support teaching and learning on our campus. Our educational consultants at the CTL are finalizing dates for a number of specific topic workshops and boot camps. There will also be some more intensive opportunities on universal course design and indigenization that are being developed by our newer to CTL educational consultants, Gabrielle and Janine. Again, this year, we also will be offering centralized TA training to all new TAs across our campus. And if you have not yet subscribed to our CTL newsletter, please do so, as the next one will kind of highlight a lot of the details and the dates to this. And you can also find that information on our events calendar at the CTL as they kind of populate over the next week or so. As always, the CTL is always available for one-to-one support, and that can be with one of our ed consultants, a learning design intern, or a learning technology rover. Just email the CTL help desk, let us know what you're looking for, and we will connect you with the right person for your needs. The IT department has been working very hard to implement a number of technical upgrades, and the plan is to do this for all of our classrooms as quickly as they can, knowing that supply chain industry in this industry is pretty stressed, so they are working as best as they can to do this. The exciting aspect of these upgrades is that will enable instructors to lecture capture in much better ways. So using cameras placed at the back of the room that really attract instructors as we like to move when we're talking often to our students. And students have repeatedly said, and the faculty have kind of reinforced this today, that recorded lectures have brought value to their learning experiences. And thus it's pretty exciting that IT has found a way to make this feasible and accessible for us moving forward as we transition back into the classroom. The CTL and IT are currently working out the details of having instructors sign up for on-site orientation sessions, and that communications will be going out shortly. IT is also here to support everyone as they set up their workstations and offices as we transition back to campus, but this is a big job. There will be details again on how to sign up for this in the coming weeks in our kind of global messaging. But we just want to encourage you to kind of take advantage of the CTL resources, sign up for these one-on-one sessions as early as you can to prevent a backlog and that increased stress that we all experience at the start of the semester. A reminder that our library is also a great resource, in particularly your subject librarians who can work with you. I know I've, I guess gained a lot from this experience personally, to identify resources for your courses, including open educational resources, even how to integrate them easily into Canvas for ease of access by students, and information literacy for your students, so extra resources that you can provide your students as well. And last but not least, the Student Learning Hub for our undergraduate students and our Center for Scholarly Communication for our graduate students will continue to offer a large variety of supports in the coming year to support both in-person and remote learning. So we just really encourage you to share that information with your students so they can connect to the various resources they have with them. And so that's it for me. So back to you, Brad, to have us open our Q&A session.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you everyone on our panel for your thoughts today. Now it's time for our question and answer session. Just a reminder, you can ask a question by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom window. And you can vote for the questions most important to you by clicking on the like button. Our goal today is to focus more on the teaching and learning environment and the student experience on campus. So where possible, we're encouraging you to keep your questions focused to that. I realize that some of the questions were broadly related to kind of resumption and safety, are interrelated with that. Where possible, questions are being added into the, they're being answered as questions are being asked where possible. I wanted to start with a question for our faculty panelists, and I'm not sure who would like to start with this, but I maybe go in reverse order of the faculty who presented, if you can, so just to give Mayran a warning. This has been a unique year. What are you looking forward to most about the fall resumption, the coming back to campus? And maybe I'll start with Tanya, because I guess I'll start with you and then Mayran, and we'll go in reverse order. So what are you looking forward to most?
Okay, well, I actually am looking forward to getting back in the classroom. So with my interim role, unfortunately, that is the one piece that I had to give up. And I really look forward to being back with students. But honestly, in my own courses, I've been thinking a lot about how to, even though I didn't necessarily prepare a ton of pre-recorded things, how I can do that moving forward and really engage the students in the classroom when we're there in activities, and just to kind of reinforce the learning. So that's kind of what I'm exploring over the next few months, and I'm excited to be back with students.
You're right.
Yes, the same for me. I look forward to seeing the students. The university is soulless without the students in it. The other aspect is the labs. In engineering, we have lots of hands-on labs. We tried many things, recording videos, simulations, but at the end of the day, it's much more fun when the students have hands-on experience in the lab. So I look forward to have that experience again.
Jackie.
Thanks, Brad. I think for me, I really agree with what both Tanya and Maren have said, that I can't wait to have the students back on campus and to see all of our colleagues. I love the idea of the virtual office hours, and I will keep them as well. But I do miss when the students just would walk by and just say hi or check in. And some conversations with students really are much more meaningful in person. And so I look forward to the opportunity to be able to have those interactions in person again. Thanks.
Anita.
Much like what has been mentioned, of course, the students, but I'm looking forward to the conversations, not just with students in class, the discussions, the little, anecdotes. Life just comes around, whether queuing up for coffee, walking across, catching up with people. I think those are the critical moments where we connect and bond. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
Raymond?
Same thing. I'm looking forward to seeing all the students, but also combining all these great online ideas with the in-person class. I think there's some really unique opportunities that we can have because of that.
Yeah, what are you looking forward to?
In a similar vein, I'm looking forward to a number of the human interactions being back. And I think you see that in some of the supports we're trying to offer in terms of a lot of peer-based support, through the student experience desk, through expansion of our peer leaders group. We're going to have, for those students that are in isolation, we'll have self-isolation ambassadors, students that are engaging with those students throughout that period. Graduate students have identified some additional need in terms of mental health support. And so we've created some positions at the graduate level to support students there. So creating those peer-based interactions again is something I'm really looking forward to.
Thanks. I'm gonna start with one that Tanya, you've already touched on just a tiny bit, which is the amount of work that's going on with the AV capabilities in the classroom. For those participating in this forum, we also have Todd Zimmerman available to answer the question. So Tanya and Todd, I'll maybe turn it over to you. Can you give us a little bit more on what faculty can expect with the kind of new technologies that are being put into the classrooms?
Thanks, Brad. So yeah, I know that IT has been working hard. As I mentioned, there's kind of the opportunity to kind of outfit a lot of our classrooms and hopefully all of those with the ability to really kind of lecture capture in different ways. Like I know many of us did like the little laptop lecture capture in our small classrooms where it was just our PowerPoint slides and our voice somewhere as we walked along. So I think this kind of added technology will allow the students to really see us as we kind of do our lecture, and we can provide those to students. I do think this is going to be really important. I guess I would just like to add, I think we're still in a period of uncertainty. There's going to be students who, we're going to want to encourage them not to come to campus and not to come to class if they're feeling ill. There will likely still have students to isolate. And as Jackie said, missing 2 weeks is it's quite challenging. And so just to decrease the stress of the students, being able to do that lecture capture and provide that material kind of can be really helpful. And I know IT is really trying to work to ease that and make it as easy as possible for faculty to be able to engage with this equipment. Todd, would you like to add any more technical details at this point?
I don't think there's much to add other than the fact that, yeah, like you said, we're in the process of procuring and scheduling installs, things like that, for as many of the classrooms as possible. Our hope and goal is to get all of the classrooms to some degree with cameras and microphone additions and other technologies, things like that. So much more to come in this, and we're definitely we're encouraging people to reach out to get familiar with some of those technologies, and we'll have more messaging around that of how to do that coming out in the near future, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity to use this technology come fall.
Yeah, and just to add very briefly, there already are a couple of rooms that have been set up to kind of see what this new technology is like. So as Todd mentioned, messaging will be coming out about that very soon, and opportunities for you to go in and kind of experience it in a low stakes environment when you don't have students in front of you is coming. So certainly between CTL and the IT team, or the AV team, we will be actively ready to support you over the next few months on that. I wanted to go to a really interesting question from Cindy, which is related to kind of the number of platforms that students are expected to interact with. This is actually a really tricky one that we've received. Student feedback consistently has raised concerns with just the sheer volume of different tools that they need to kind of use. And so that's actually something that I think institutions across the country and around the world have been grappling with. I was wondering if anybody would like to take on kind of and there's different levels of this conversation. So at a course level, as an individual faculty member, at a program level, how we might make some decisions, and or faculty level. I don't know, does somebody want to tackle how you're thinking about this challenge, and how you are thinking about working with some of your peers in your department or program or faculty? Anybody want to take on that one? Go ahead, Anita.
So I just wanted to talk from a personal point of view with experience of the whole teaching and learning aspect in the past few courses that I have observed that students, the less and more idea kind of plays out very much. Yes, students are very capable of learning different technologies, but once the term starts, life does get busy, and recognizing that they are taking more than just the course I'm teaching is valuable. And therefore, I try to reduce the anxiety of learning very many different platforms or even engaging with different easy platforms. So a very simple example would be of a digital poster. So if an assignment asks for that, I direct them to the UBC template that's available to them. And yes, of course, the flexibility is if you're particularly feeling motivated and eager to use a different platform, have a discussion with your group mates, do it. But then a very obvious, straightforward way is available that works out quite well with the technology as in Canvas that exists for us. So that's how I'm kind of trying to balance it, not bringing in too many new forms.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Raymond.
I think as an instructor, if you can integrate things in the Canvas, you make everybody's life easier. So that should be number one. And I think you should communicate with your colleagues. So I used to be director of the Master of Data Science program. That was a more fixed program, but we basically instituted standards on what you want to use. And even if you can't go that far, if you figure out what your colleagues are doing, it'll make everybody's life easier.
Go ahead, Jackie. Yeah.
Just sort of reiterating what the other panelists have said, but I think just going back to the discussion I had, using similar, like same look and feel, but it's still your own individual course content really does work. So if you can get a group of people together to have those conversations, whether it's the whole faculty or a group of faculty, and then share those resources with one another, it makes a world of difference, particularly in May when the summer session started. We had our syllabus template and our Canvas shell template. And yes, integrating all into Canvas is really helpful, but it was so much of a help for the instructors in putting together their courses.
Go ahead, Dale. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight something that came out of the survey was students really did benefit from the Canvas calendar. They spoke about that opportunity where faculty were using that instead of only relying on the syllabus was something that they very much enjoyed, and that they would like to see that be something that's used consistently going forward. And also that if students are looking to understand and best utilize new platforms that might be in a particular course, that they can also be directed to the Student Learning Hub. The peer mentors there are able to assist students in understanding and learning how to navigate those softwares.
Excellent. I think the only thing I wanted to add was, I think an encouragement for people to also talk to your colleagues about the possibilities of using open resources where possible. I know in BC, open educational resources, open textbooks have been a priority for a long time, but I just wanted to remind that as we start to think about what are these kind of opportunities made available across courses, if we can actually use some of the open resources that are available, it really does make a difference for students. From an access and affordability perspective. So I just thought I'd add that little piece onto this. It's not really the question. In fact, actually, in some ways, it complicates the question slightly. but most open resources can be integrated well into Canvas. The one I'm going to move to the next question, which is actually related that recognition of increased workload. The question is there a consideration to provide faculty schools with funding for TAs to support increased teaching workloads? I know this is, I'll start with a really high level question, that this is actually something that Dean's Council has been talking about quite consistently over the last while. There is a recognition that there are going to be resources that are required for this work moving forward. But I think the default answer really needs to be that faculty have to speak to their heads or directors of their schools where if they are needing access to resources, that the institution is relying on kind of the heads of departments and the directors of schools to kind of bring those requests up to the deans. So it is incredibly important that you be vocal about some of the requirements, things that you're thinking about, but knowing that isn't a guarantee of resources. Tanya, I'm going to turn to you as somebody who's an academic leader within one of the schools. I don't know if you can. I know you're speaking about one particular school, but can you speak a little bit to kind of how maybe you guys are thinking about TAs?
Yeah, so that's been our approach essentially, is to really encourage faculty members to come forward. And this was pre-COVID in terms of if they were trying out a new pedagogy and needed extra support, the unit really wanted to support that, to have high quality learning within our program. And the same has been true. So we did have more TAs last year, especially for fourth year courses who might not have had them because of smaller classroom sizes or smaller numbers of students. But because of all the technology pieces and we continue to do that way. So I would just encourage faculty members to really have that conversation with their directors and their unit heads, and then to forward that up to the deans. That's how we really get an understanding on our campus of what our resource needs are, and can kind of continue those conversations. As I tell my students, if you don't tell me, I don't know how I can make it better. And so I think it's really important to have that same message with our faculty and staff too, is to have those important conversations.
And just to add the layer of reminder that there is going to be a TA orientation available again this year. So if you are going to have opportunities for increased TAs, there is going to be some opportunities for those TAs to get some support around how they do their work effectively. And on a different piece, this is actually a different element of the workload from the question that was asked, but CTL also is continuing with Learning Tech Rovers and the Learning Design Interns program into the fall. So if there is some support through CTL for some additional assistance, if you are thinking about some of the design challenges as we move to kind of a new environment in the fall, I just wanted to kind of reiterate that support that was mentioned earlier. This is the next question is a big one related to kind of the post-fall conversation, which is how are we actually thinking about possibilities of online or hybrid delivery after December 2021? I just wanted to say that this is actually something that is certainly going to be a conversation that's ramping up really quickly. For those that may have seen the announcements about this, there is actually a beyond there's kind of a future of teaching and learning task force that's actually kicking off work as we speak, thinking about what are some of the longer term, or actually I should say more medium term kind of directions that UBC is wanting to go with. So it's across both campuses, Vancouver and the Okanagan, and several faculty from the Okanagan are involved in the various components or various working groups under that project, including actually at least one, maybe two that are chairing subcommittees or sub working groups in that work. So there is absolutely conversations that are starting around what does some of that long term look like. In terms of the actual online delivery, this is actually an area where the deans are going to be really involved in and within their faculties, they will have kind of their processes for engaging faculty in those conversations about what does online learning look like for UBC Okanagan. That is a question that from a strategic enrollment management perspective, we will be asking, thinking about the possibilities of online pathways for students who may have access challenges or online opportunities that provide flexibility in course registration. These are all things that we're going to have to kind of explore as we move forward. Definitely going to be part of an ongoing conversation on campus as we move forward. The next, there are several comments about support from CTL and the tech in the classroom. So thank you for those comments. But in terms of the next question, it's are there contingency plans for faculty who need to self-isolate and are teaching in-person classes? Will there be an expectation then to deliver classes virtually? So I don't know if this is something, Mike, that you might be able to speak to on or not. So
I think this is a program-based and a health-based question. So certainly we don't expect people to teach when they're sick and unable to teach. At the same time, self-isolation and our work from home has developed capacities that we have to continue our activities, including our teaching and learning activities from home. And so I'd say it's something that to be negotiated on a program by program base, depending on the individual's particular circumstances, because sometimes self-isolation is because people are symptomatic and quite sick.
Thanks, Mike. And just to reiterate something that I think, Tanya, you said earlier, which is that there will be an expectation, obviously, that if people have symptoms, they should be staying home. Students should be staying home if they have symptoms. And that the flexibility around accommodating that is something that we're going to need to grapple with as faculty. But the same is true of faculty who are teaching. And so we're going to need to, there is going to need to be a sense of flexibility associated with this work. So this is going to be, there's going to be that balance around flexibility as we move forward. I am just mindful of time. We are actually nearing the end of our time today, and I'm also we're at the end of our questions in the Q&A. We certainly invite follow-up questions. If you want to reach out to me, or if you want to go through the website that was linked in the chat earlier for related to the kind of resumption FAQ page. Certainly do please reach out and ask further questions. There is going to be comprehensive communications following up on a lot of the questions that are specific to some of the safety protocols for the fall and how we are responding to them as a campus community. And some of that communication will be forthcoming, of course. And there are lots of people who are working actively on that weekly, as Mike said right at the beginning of our session. I just wanted to kind of close with a few quick just reflections on some of the key themes that I heard. And I really liked the kind of the reminder of the value that video had this past year. It came up. Students actually really vocalized in surveys, in panels that we've had students on, the ability to kind of review, pause, rewind materials was actually incredibly valuable. So thinking about how we use video sustainably moving forward, the importance of clear communication with students and with each other about expectations is critical. Flexibility, empathy for one another and for our students. Taking what worked well online and adapting it for our future learning environment while thinking about how to make the most of those face-to-face opportunities with our students. And importantly, to reach out for support, that you do not need to go it alone, that between your peers and your programs, peers on campus, between CTL, the libraries, IT, AV, reach out and ask for support, and we will do whatever we can to kind of support you along this journey as we move forward. I just wanted to take a moment and offer any of our panelists the opportunity for any final reflections or remarks. And so if you have any final thoughts, feel free to kind of wave your hand. I won't go in a specific order in case you don't want to go, but does anybody have any final remarks? Tanya, go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of want to say, I think there's a lot of things that came up today that really just comes down to good communication. And maybe it's just the psychologist in me, but communication is so important. And so as instructors, we have to communicate to those who are kind of maybe overseeing our undergraduate programs or graduate programs, depending on kind of where you teach. And as directors or associate directors, we need to talk to our directors, and then our directors need to talk to our deans. I mean, it is through these conversations that we learn about how we can better support each other. So we talk a lot about building community and a sense of belonging for our students. I think we need to do that for faculty and staff and instructors as well. And it is through those conversations and opening those conversations around, what we might need in terms of feeling like we have a plan for isolation, or what we might need in terms of to better support our pedagogy and to keep those conversations going. I'm a just big believer in communication, and I just hope that we can kind of foster more of that on our campus to better support all of us in teaching and learning. So that's all I'd like to say.
Dale or anybody else? Is everybody good? Go ahead, Dale.
Sure. I just want to make a plug for, if you are interested in knowing more about how we are responding to the student survey on Monday with the town hall for students, we clearly want to show that we have listened to their feedback and we are putting resources to support their needs out. So we'll be going further in depth around each bursary opportunity and program, the types of supports. We're making an investment of over $1.6 million in student employment opportunities across the campus for students, because we know that they're impacted most by COVID with regards to having access to employment opportunities to pay for their education, as an example. And so a plug for Monday, if you'd like to join, as well as a reminder that we will have students that are immunocompromised, or their community, their Indigenous community may be in a state of emergency that won't be able to attend. And we do anticipate, although many of our international students will have expedited visas, some students will face barriers, primarily first-year students, but some second-year students, in terms of accessing biometrics or their medical exam to be able to enter the country. So just emphasizing that need, that we may have students arriving as late as October or second semester, and trying to be as flexible as possible to support student need.
Anybody else? So I just wanted to mention that Ananya was able to kind of send a quick note that we will be constituting working groups about systemic conversations regarding online courses moving forward. I think there is going to be a lot of conversations on campus about what the future of online delivery looks like for our campus, knowing that the vast majority of our programs are on campus in location programs. But so just to add that to the conversation, that there will be some processes coming forward in the near future. Sorry to put her on the spot, but is there, Leslie, or do you have any closing thoughts or remarks, or if not, yeah.
I'm happy to say that I feel that our pedagogy and our students are in good hands here. I'm really deeply moved by just how committed our instructors are to making sure that the classroom and the learning experience is an important and good one for our students. And I think as long as we keep that very much in the front of our minds, we will do really well. And so thank you for all that you have done. And I think we can look forward to a quite exciting year next year. We won't quite know what it'll look like, but I think that we're on a good path.
So with that, thank you very much to each of you on our panel for your time today. It's been incredibly valuable to hear from you and hear your reflections on your planning, your experiences the past year, your thoughts about the coming year. And to everybody that was a participant here today, thank you so much for your time today and participating, for your questions. And please do continue to bring forward your questions if you have them over the coming weeks and months. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.